I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. Anywhere I go, DC's coming with me. I spent my whole damn life in the city. I could go for broke, but the capital is in me.
Welcome, everyone, to District Divided, a DC sports podcast. More specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. I am Amit. That is KDot. And before we begin this episode, which is about the quarterbacks, the big question here is, if you could land just one quarterback this offseason, whether it be in the draft or free agency, who would it be? And we are going to give you our top three each for you guys in this episode. So before we begin that, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do. We got the comment mailbag. And KDot,
get your flu vaccine. This shit sucks. And then share this shit.
Share this shit. Yeah. So we are both pretty banged up right now. So we were sort of struggling with what to come up with for this episode because we worked backwards. So next week, we've got the NFL Combine preview episode. The QBs are going to be throwing Saturday, March 1st. We're looking forward to seeing. Same thing with the skill position, with the wide receivers, for example, running backs. The week after is going to be a Combine recap, free agency predictions, just based on the various people we brought in, the salary cap space we have. Maybe we've re-signed Cam Curl at that point. Please, guys, re-sign Cam Curl, at least to me. And then the week after that, we're going to have free agency signings and the grade so far, what we can expect from there. And I'm sure maybe a couple trades, big trades in the NFL would have happened by then as well. But again, the focus on this one as we begin is if you could land one quarterback this offseason, who would it be? And again, this is either draft or free agency. We're going to give you our top three. KDot, let's begin with you. You could begin with number one, or you can go work your way down.
Oh, right. I didn't think about that part of it. Right? So
you haven't been thinking a lot this last week, though. So to be fair,
brother,
your brain is just getting going right now.
I'm in such a fog. Maybe we'll talk about it after the pod, but I'm in
Probably
a very, very, very vulnerable state. All right, let's fuck it. I'm just gonna go any which order, which way,
Go for it.
Because the way that you broke it. So like I had a list initially, which was like, all right, my top three dream candidates is like a power ranking of who I'd like most in the quarterback room starting next year, pretty much, right? But then I started looking at, all right, what scenarios would have to happen to play out? Do you have this happen, this happen? And I'm kind of looking at, all right, just gonna explain it. My number one is Gardner Minshew. Now,
oh my God. Your number one, if you could land one quarterback, it's Gardner Minshew?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The reason Gardner Minshew is my number one is because of what it facilitates for other things on the roster, which to me is I'm of the idea that regardless of whatever it is we do at quarterback, I like having someone starting here for whoever it is we have at a rookie for at least a year. So like the idea is I want the perfect bridge quarterback, regardless of what happens at the second pick or whatever it is you're going to do later on in the draft when it comes to quarterback. The Sam Howellness of it, when you're hearing more rumors talking about like the New York Jets potentially being really, really interested in Sam Howell as far as dangling as far as draft capital, or the idea that if you want to have a Drake Maye on your list, I find it to be extremely awkward, the idea of bringing in Drake Maye to compete with Sam Howell, knowing how close they are as far as friendship goes. I get that you're supposed to be professionals, this, that, and the other, but from my understanding as far as how close they are, it's just weird to me.
Human emotion can take over in that situation.
It's just a weird thing. So like if there's anybody sniffing as far as Sam Howell with that, would I rather go into this year with Sam Howell or pay for Gardner Minshew, who did an amazing job as far as getting the Colts, one game out of the playoffs when Anthony Richardson went down. And even though Richardson, you would hate that he went down, kind of worked out that he was a bridge quarterback to Anthony Richardson. Or if the Colts could do it over again, they probably would have started Gardner to begin the year, kept him as starter, and have Anthony come in later on. And maybe the entire season looks very, very different, right? So like, I like Gardner Minshew. I like him. If you see what
I just as your number one is wild to me.
I know. But the reason he's my number one is because of who my number 2 and 3 are. Number 2 is Jayden Daniels. And the reason Gardner Minshew's number one is that regardless of whatever happens with number 2 or number 3, I still want number 1 here. So like my number one guy
Okay, I see what you're
is
saying.
here regardless of whoever it is, the number 2 or number 3 that I'm going to pick on my list are. Jayden Daniels is number 2. Look, I think we've talked about it. Jayden Daniels is somebody who, as the college football season had, I told you guys that he was my favorite of all the quarterbacks. If I had to pick one, that was my guy. I still sort of feel that way. Like if you put a gun in my head, I like Caleb Williams as well, but I've talked about having the hometown kid. I have my reservations when it comes to that. Also, there is I still do think, and I made a really bold prediction at the end of last season that there's a chance to post combine and everything. There's going to be people that say that Jayden Daniels might be number 1. And just saying, overall, I'm really, really liking Jayden Daniels. But once again, if I'm looking at Jayden Daniels, I see if you look at his stature, if you look at what he weighs and how tall he is, but he's 6'4", but plays with like 210. If that is,
I'm starting to get my measurables ready because I love this guy.
Yeah, but he ain't he ain't 210. He doesn't move
200.
Right. He needs to put some more meat on those bones.
Yeah.
Right. The idea that like when people compare him to Lamar Jackson, he's not the scramble Lamar Jackson is. He gets hit entirely way more often than Lamar Jackson gets hit. As far as from a lateral movement standpoint, you need more meat on your bones, son. So like that's one of those things where I look at a Gardner Minshew. Hey, have Jayden get that there and just fucking eat. Just eat and learn. But that's cool with me. And my number 3, and this is probably the one that I might catch the most flack for, but it's JJ McCarthy. Now JJ McCarthy to me is a guy where like
Matt Regan has a raging boner, so please continue.
Fuck, I forgot about him. God damn it. I was basically want to rethink
the flu's a bitch.
Yeah. I like JJ. And the reason I like JJ is that like if you look at him, he's also a dude whose body is not ready for me for prime time. He's 6'3", 205-ish, which is also not a 205-ish. He looks thin. He's not as fast as Jayden Daniels. He needs to put some more meat on those bones too. But when I look at JJ McCarthy, I look at a guy who can win. I look at a guy who, when you're really looking at like the amount of times that he puts himself in a situation of throwing interceptable balls, that percentage is very, very low. Sorry. He's just fuck.
Okay, but the thing about JJ while you go through that is
he's great.
He is a winner. Okay, so like Michigan under JJ McCarthy, I think he has maybe the highest winning percentage in all of college football or something like that. Maybe that's Power 5. I'd have to double check that stat. But the man is a serial winner over there. He had the drive against Alabama where they really needed to have it. He got it done. And he has experience in those big moments as a result of that, right? So I definitely get where you're coming from with that. And it would probably come with a trade down, I suspect. You don't want him at 2, do you?
No, I don't think you need to do that at all. And I actually think that I think what's going to end up happening when it comes to combine is JJ is going to be one of those dudes you hear he's going to interview really well. I think that some of his measurables are going to come back a little higher than people expect him to. He's a bit more physical than people realize he is as far as physical tools and abilities and talents. I think people look at him as almost like a boring prospect, but he's not that. So there is a chance he can like sneak into that day one thing. But like to me is like, I think that you can even stand pack at 2 and do what you want to do with Marvin Harrison Jr. or do what you want to do as far as a lineman or Brock Bowers, and potentially either moving up using some of the second round picks you have to get up to him, or waiting and maybe he falls around 2. That maybe not completely likely, but it is a possibility, especially when you get more people that might get excited about Penix as time goes on, and more people that might get excited about Bo Nix as time gets on, even though Bo Nix is somebody that I know, if you watch him play at Auburn, you don't want anything.
That is 100% correct.
Right. But it's one of those things where it's like JJ McCarthy is one of those guys that I would look at as far as like, we have enough draft capital. You can wait to see how things play out to see whether or not you need to make a move to go and get him, and you can have the capital to do so.
Okay. So to recap your top 3, no matter what, your number 1, you want Gardner Minshew in the building, correct?
Yes.
So that is a free agent signing you definitely want to make. You want him to be the bridge to whomever we choose to draft. So that's 1. 2, Jayden Daniels. I think you and I both really love him as a prospect over at LSU, Heisman Trophy winner this past season. Very electric, gets a lot of RG3 comps. We can dive into that in a moment. And then, of course, you'd mentioned JJ McCarthy. That could involve a trade down, maybe a trade back up, depending on how far down you go.
Right.
On the subject of Gardner Minshew, would you be devastated if we didn't get him, KDot?
No.
Okay. But he is someone that hey, if we were to get any one QB this offseason, forget Jayden, forget JJ. Well, it could be Drake, I suppose, could be Caleb, but it's got to be Gardner.
But the thing is, like, we're ranking because this was the task that was given to me.
This is true. I did provide this task to KDot.
But I've also I've said ad nauseum here on the pod that I'm not getting hell bent on any one person under any circumstances at all into this. So like, I'm not. You even saw this with the coaching search. I'm not too high on anything. I think that there are a lot of different ways to skin this cat.
Yeah, and this is sort of a time capsule moment, if you will. This is before the combine. This is before free agency. This is before all these reports come out. And this is before we figure out how our front office wants to operate. They're still getting to know each other, these guys, right? So like, they're still working on their chemistry. The combine is a big weekend in terms of gathering information, not only on the prospects at quarterback, let's say, because we have pick 2, but it's also an opportunity for them to meet other front office staff, GMs, assistant GMs, and be able to talk trades potentially. So there's a whole lot that happens during the combine. So very curious to see what happens there. So once again, that's Gardner Minshew 1. That's Jayden Daniels 2. That is JJ McCarthy 3. My list. So KDot, we've had this conversation many times before, where I think if you are picking in the top 3, I want to stay there. I don't think you get that many opportunities to be able to do so. The reason the Bears have the opportunity to do so is because the Panthers were so bad and traded their future first-round pick that it's actually the Panthers pick that the Bears have possession of, right? So that's the reason they're back over there, not because of them themselves. So Justin Fields actually did a pretty nice job down the stretch. So for me, number 3 is Caleb Williams, the hometown kid. So I think he does possess an insane level of talent. I don't think this sort of idea that let me take a step back. It's not coming from nowhere with the scouts, right? They have been hyping this dude up forever. Now, you and I both sort of agree that having the guy come back, we've sort of felt burned in the past by people coming home, and then maybe there's some distractions over here, and it doesn't quite work the way that we've wanted it to in the past. I'd give the benefit of the doubt to the new front office, to the new coaching staff, and hope that it would work out. If they did choose to, it would be a trade up, which I'm not a big fan of. But if for whatever reason, what'd you say?
That's what I was going to ask. You take into consideration and you might need to move up.
I wouldn't. And that's why he's number 3 for me. Okay. So like, if in your example, Jayden Daniels does become the number 1 prospect, then I'm happy with Caleb, honestly. I'd agree. Yeah, exactly. But I want to stay at 2. But I also don't want to move down. So it's going to be a pretty boring list here. But number 2 for me is Drake Maye. One of the reasons I really like Drake Maye is because everything we're hearing so far is that the man is all about football and that he does run that air raid offense. I think he would seamlessly transition into this Cliff Kingsbury offense if we think it is going to be what it's going to be. I also have the same reservation as you, KDot, when it comes to the relationship with Sam Howell. I do think that can be an awkward start to his career. Do I think it affects him long-term?
Probably not.
Highly unlikely, like probably 0. But early on, yeah, that does kind of suck, but it wouldn't affect me taking him if I really like him. So I think he's able to make all the throws. I think we talk about the more is less argument, or does more with less. I think Drake Maye falls in that. And I do think that he had a very good year prior to this one. This one was also good, but the one prior to this one was the air raid. So with Phil Longo. So I do think that there is a very strong case to be made with Drake Maye. And it would be honestly 1A, 1B with my number 1, which is Jayden Daniels as well. So I get the RG3 comps. I would be a bit nervous too, just because it still feels fresh for a lot of fans. That was the last time we were truly excited about the squad. With how deep we could have. What'd you say?
It's been 12 years.
State of the franchise, bud. I mean, you're right there with me. I know you are. But that's just what it is. Like, I get it. I see the slender frame. I see that some of the hits he takes, my God, they just blow him up if you've seen some of the hits he takes at the college level. But I will say this. I think he has already gone through a bit of a professional transition, if you will. So he played at Arizona State, and he was even smaller than he is now. And he actually put on 15, 20 pounds when he went to LSU. So he already, to me, when I think about the mindset of a QB, I think he's already shown that he's willing to do what it takes to become better. And then you see that each year he gets better, right? And so I really like that. And we also have a enormous sample size of games where, for example, if we look at the Trey Lance pick, it was dicey for San Francisco, but you saw the raw talent, 28 touchdowns, 0 picks that year with North Dakota State, but he also barely played. So we had a small sample size there. And as we're figuring out more and more, the more you see QBs at the collegiate level, the better you can do at figuring out how they're going to be. So you need a larger sample size, and you get that with Jayden Daniels. I'm not particularly worried about the frame because I think he has the mindset to be able to put on more weight. I think he is the most dynamic player in this draft. You can make the case for Caleb, and I will absolutely listen to that, of course. But I think Jayden, I think he's spectacular. I really do. So those would be my 3. I want to stay at pick 2. And if I could only land one, I want it to be one of those 3 guys. If it ends up being JJ in a trade down because people love him, I'm on board with it. Can't believe I'm saying that because I'm sure Matt's listening, but I'm on board with it. But that's my 3. Plain and simple, got to be one of those rookies. And I don't mind starting, by the way, Sam Howell at the beginning of this coming season because he was purely in the air raid offense with Phil Longo at UNC. So I think in terms of hitting the ground running, let Sam do it. I want to sit whoever we draft at pick 2. I'm very serious about that. I want that person to sit. There is zero reason. The only offensive lineman I trust right now, KDot, is Sam Cosmi. So I want to build that line. I don't want to put pick 2 overall behind an offensive line that I don't trust, right? But Sam Howell, having been a starter, having progressed and then, yes, regressed, give him a shot. Give him a shot to start. I have zero issue with that. And he also has a large incentive to play and play well because he's playing for his career as well in terms of whether it's a backup, whether he plays really well and ends up being a starter somewhere else next season and helps with draft capital. So that's where I stand. I want Sam Howell to start because I think he can hit the ground running. And then I want one of those 3 guys. So that's my list, KDot. Take your time. Take your time and get your flu vaccines, guys.
Please. After everything you said, I changed my list.
Okay.
Matt Regan, go ahead, record this, bud. JJ McCarthy's number 1. And I don't give a fuck about the rest. And here's why. Everything you've told me, everything you're saying to me right now, I hear what you're saying. I don't believe any of it. I don't believe like half of what the shit you're saying. I know.
Don't believe me.
I don't. Because as soon as you start talking about like, oh, reminds me of RG3, and you know this fan base, and you know this is that, yeah, there is no chance in hell if you pick a quarterback 2nd overall that the immediate pressure to start that guy becomes immense. Here in this particular organization, here in this particular, just in the NFL. Then the idea that you're going to have, you're cool with Sam Howell coming out there and being the guy. Yeah. Sam Howell goes out there and we see a repeat of anything we saw the last 6-7 weeks of this last season. The idea that Sam could start week 2, like if he shows that in week 1 to me, is nuts. Like I don't see that happening at all without anyone being like, what the fuck, guys? Like you drafted this guy number 2, you got to do this. To me, the unintended consequences and pressure that become when you have to pick a guy, number 2, that he needs to be here and he needs to be a contributor, to me is a thing that I think sets this team up for failure in this one way. I do agree that you need to find your quarterback. You got to find your guy. You have to do that. But when you remind me is like, there are certain areas of this team that I'm like really, really excited to see where the talent level is with new coaching. Yeah. One level in which I know just needs retooling, period, is the offensive line.
Absolutely.
So like, if I'm looking at that, I don't want to start anybody that's that young, right? To start behind an offensive line that I got to completely rebuild with an entirely new system, with an entirely new running attack, with everything new. Like the idea is I need that to be a long road, a long runway before anybody gets thrown out to the wolves on that, just from a pressure standpoint, right?
Right.
Because I mean, if you end up sucking again this year,
Mhm.
if you end up if the team sucks, and let's say we're drafting high again,
Yeah.
you need to know answers on who this dude is, what's happening with this, what's going on. I want to remove as much pressure as possible to tool this team up as best as possible.
So here's I think the really good news. And by the way, let me just summarize what you quickly said for viewers. I think they already got it. But the whole idea is that if we took a QB in the top 3, right? Even if we move down with New England, let's say New England really wants Jayden or Drake and they're available and they take them and we take the remainder, there is massive pressure to start that guy week 1.
Yeah.
Right. And the fear is that they will. And the fear is that the offensive line isn't ready. And the fear is we ruined the prospect. Right. And so there is that line of thinking. And I get where you're coming from. The reason I have been excited about this offseason, about the ownership transition, is because I don't think this group, and I think they've proven that many times already, KDot, given to fan pressure. There have been many times where, remember after the Chicago game, I was like, yo, fire Ron, fire Jack. I was heated, right? I'm on the whiskey sours. I come back here. Hey, can you record? But I'm going, right? So are a lot of fans.
I don't think it's the fan thing. I like, that's my, it's not just the fan thing. Okay. I agree with you. This one of the reasons I've loved everything. Remember, this offseason is playing out. If
excellently
I had
so far,
everything I've ever wanted, right?
Great. Yes.
Right. And one of the main things is that they're not doing things that they would typically do.
So let me just hold on to my point for a second, which is that just for a moment, that Josh Harris has shown an exceptional level of patience. And I don't think that's going to suddenly change. I think that's who he is. I think that if we end up taking a QB at 2 and go, hey, we need to sit the guy, I don't think Josh Harris is suddenly, Dan Snyder would absolutely go, yeah, bitch would go, you're starting that motherfucker right now. Like, that is what you're doing. Josh is going to let them do what they want to do.
I'm not, hold on, but my point specifically, if I'm gonna, I'll get it specifically, is your Sam Howell. It's different if it's Gardner Minshew.
Okay,
to me, it's Sam Howell going out there and sucking at the level at which I've seen the floor for Sam Howell.
Okay.
The floor for Sam Howell is you can't start this guy. You literally can't start him. You can't play him. Like you can't. The floor for Gardner Minshew is not that. Like, that to me is like, if you're going to go that route, that's the only reason. That's all I'm saying is, like, if you're going to go that route, I don't think you can go in day 1 with Sam Howell as your starter.
Okay.
Because the floor for Sam is I literally cannot play you.
Okay. Fair enough. So here, I would be willing to move off of Sam Howell. Like, if you want to get Gardner, that's totally fine.
Cool.
The reason I was making the case for Sam is because he has the familiarity with the offense already. Supposedly, we're going to find out more. The air raid, right? That's what we're talking about, right? We have Anthony Lynn as well. So all I was saying was, I think you have, a young guy, but a guy that showed enough that, hey, he already has familiarity with Terry. He already has familiarity with Jahan. He already has familiarity with Brian Robinson. Like, I think there are enough pieces there that you go
worse as the season went on.
but that's where we get into coaching.
I get it.
Glad we did this episode. Coaching versus the actual personnel.
100%. I'm not denying any of that, but I also say that, like, another thing that we need to probably remove from our lexicon as we're talking about is air raid. Because every time that we hear Cliff Kingsbury talk about it, it seems like he wants to stab anybody that fucking says those words. It feels as though whatever it is that's going to be here is not necessarily something we've seen from him prior.
That's fine. That's fine. So we won't even label it. But I also know that he's probably got an idea of what he wants to do, and it won't be that different.
I don't know about that.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm more than happy to have
part of it is huge.
How about this? I'm more than happy to have a known sort of bridge guy. That's fine with me. Yeah, that is totally fine with me. So if it's Gardner, if it's I don't know, if it's Jacoby, I'm fine with that.
I just think that people need my whole point on that is that I think people need to, when we're talking about salary cap space, we're talking about free agency.
Yeah.
If that is going to be something that you take seriously, as far as sitting your top quarterback pick or prospect, if you're going to pick him in the top 2, that means you're going to spend some money on that quarterback. And I think that needs to be something that people need to be comfortable with or understand that has to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it's possible to draft a quarterback top 2 and start Sam Howell knowing that there's a possibility that Sam Howell could play anything like we saw at the end of this last season. I just don't think that's I don't think that's a possibility.
I'm also curious to see how Sam grows this offseason, but you know what?
I'm hoping all for the best. I'm really hoping that's the case, but I don't. And to see me picking up a JJ McCarthy at the end of the first round, beginning of the second round, and you have a Sam Howell, much easier sell.
As far as you say, end of the first,
end of the first round, JJ McCarthy.
He's going to go top 10. By the way, that's JJ? At least based on everything you said about how he's probably going to do at the combine, and based on what NFL scouts are already saying, with some already having him higher. Oof. We could almost place a bet on that one. I think he's going to be. I think he's got quite a ceiling, and I think someone's going to fall in love with him. The knock with him in Michigan, he won a lot, but he also wasn't asked to do a whole lot. KDot. So like when you look at the number of attempts per game, wasn't very high. So we're learning about JJ as well, the thrower, the passer, as we go. He's very athletic. He actually fits a lot of what Cliff talked about when mentioning what he wants from the quarterback position. So we'll see. But hey, this was a good debate. I actually appreciated that. That's going to continue as we go. I'd love to hear what you guys have in the comment mailbag. Any final thoughts before we go to the comment mailbag, KDot?
Draft a quarterback later.
Okay, draft a quarterback later. And I stand firmly on draft the quarterback at 2 because we haven't seen prospects like this in some time. Looking at next year, it's not going to be the same crop that we have this year, at least from the scouting look back 10 years perspective. This does seem to be a special group, but sit him. Please sit him until we know we have the pieces on the offensive line. I'm willing to wait the whole year. We're going to look back at this episode and after week 3 where I'm like, start him now. We'll have a laugh about that, but sit him seriously so that he gets time to learn, so that his body is fresh, and so that he's ready once the time is right. There is a good history behind sitting a QB that you're very high on. So we'll see what happens, but let's go to the comment mailbag where we have a number of comments beginning with Donate. Shout out Tony OG. Hell yeah. First comment. Been a while since Tony's been the first comment, by the way. So hell yeah. First comment. Happy born day, KDot. How was your birthday, KDot?
Maybe I'll get in this. We got time after the pod, but thank you, Tony.
We'll make a little bit of time for that. And man, I just watched Midsommar with my wife, and I don't even know where to begin to describe what I just watched. I mean, it's a crazy film. That's the absolute wildest movie we've ever watched. I won't say much, so I don't spoil it, but man, what other movies you got? Kid, I'll leave that to you. What other movies you got for Tony over here?
Well, I mean, I can't tell if you liked it.
It was wild.
It was wild. That's I would say wildest. I'd say stick with Ari Aster. Finish up Ari Aster. Do Beau is Afraid and do Hereditary.
Ari Aster being the director.
The director of Midsommar. Yep.
Of Midsommar.
I say stick with him. Do the other 2 on his run.
And Tony, you really don't want my recommendations. I like movies like Semi-Pro, featuring Will Ferrell, for example, and Woody Harrelson. So you probably don't want my recommendations. If you do, drop another comment. Happy to give you all sorts of dumb movies to watch. So listen to KDot there. We go over to Kenny B 5412. Shout out Kenny. Appreciate it. My favorite new pod. Keep it up. Kenny, thank you so much. Really appreciate that comment. Very kind of you. And actually, HTTC 7325 replies, yeah, I agree. These 2 are gaining rank amongst my favorite Washington Commanders content creators. Appreciate that reply in there. It seems like we're maybe doing something right. I don't quite know what it is, but it's working.
Hopefully this flu episode doesn't ruin all the goodwill.
Yeah, well, we've decided to put it to the test. So we will go ahead and see how that goes.
I'm not remember anything I've said about quarterbacks this episode. I'm just going to put that out there.
Well, you gave
Corner issue. Did I say that?
Yeah. We go over to Unix Man 1891. Shout out. Just subscribed. You guys are awesome. Appreciate that comment there, Unix Man. Man, we're getting some positive feedback. KDot, can you please put it together? It's the comment mailbag. God.
I'm muting.
And then we go over to Earl Bruce 3232. Shout out Earl. I am so excited for the defense. Proven coaches throughout this staff will lead to vast improvement. KK's offense, Cliff Kingsbury's offense, is still unknown, but it won't be the air raid. And the run game coordinator will rein in too much passing. They are going to have to rebuild the offensive line because a strong run game is a young QB's best friend. along with the good tight end, this feels so different from Snyder. I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. I would love a strong run game. Actually, flying back from Mexico City, had a connecting flight in Chicago, KDot. Sitting there, there's a little kid playing Candy Crush, Brian Robinson jersey, Commander's hat. It's different. I couldn't believe it. I almost took a photo. I was like, I don't think it's appropriate for me to take a photo of an 8-year-old kid. So I just decided not to do that. But shout out that kid in Chicago at that time. Then we go over to Anthony B27. Yes, that was exactly the problem under Dan Snyder. The best coaches in front office had no interest in coming to Washington. Wasted years. Feels good to be a franchise that is taken a bit more seriously and feels like it's actually participating in the NFL, KDot.
Agreed. I've been occasionally still catching people grading all the coaching hires. And it's still, to me, without the proper context of everything that's happened here, it's still so weird to see the way they rank like the Dan Quinn stuff, or how it is that they think that like we went about things, or how things have kind of been here in the past. It's very nice to be a wanted commodity. Like it's good.
It's nice to feel wanted.
Yes.
Yeah. People want to be here. We got, to me, a very good coaching staff. And to KDot's point, and I got to give him credit again, it's not just the head coach that we were looking at, right? It was what can the head coach bring to the table in terms of the branching and the coaching staff around him. And same thing with Adam Peters. Got a couple extra guys from San Francisco. We got a couple extra guys from Dallas. It's been awesome so far this off season. We go to HTTC 7325, who initially had the reply. Appreciate that. I can't wait to see the roster we build go and be legit. Yes, it will. That's the emoji that was also sent over, showing some love there. And so on that note, we are going to have, again, the Combine episode. We're going to have our free agent prediction episode. We're going to have the free agency recap episode. So we are also going to give you our thoughts on who we're going to sign and then how the signings line up. Hopefully it is a good roster like you're hoping for, HTTC. We go over to Hermit Rob 5481. Shout out. If we can take away anything from the whole coaching process, is the incredibly low football IQ of the majority of fans. That's music to KDot's ears. I knew the moment I read that, he was going to be like, who's that? Genius. I want Mike McDonald. I want Bobby Slowick, etc. Those were in quotes. How little understanding of what's involved in the actual position of head coach. How do you think Seattle fans' feelings about it right now are? How the Seattle brass didn't account for what's happening is either astounding or they're good with a major, and I mean major, roll of the dice. DC would DC would be breaking out the pitchforks and marching on Ashburn. Josh may have to leave the country. Conversely, we should feel good about Josh and AP putting DQ, so Adam Peters, putting Dan Quinn at the top of the list if they couldn't get Ben Johnson, who was going to bring a few of his offensive people with him and apparently had a plan for defense. So far, trust the process has lived up. Now on to player acquisition. KDot, what do you make of that comment from Hermit Rob?
Hermit Rob?
Yeah.
Hermit Rob, I appreciate a lot of what you're saying there. What I will say is that what you're underestimating is the power of fan spin. If you talk to Seattle fans right now, they're excited about the prospects of these unheralded guys who come from the college ranks to being the new bastion of great hope in the NFL. And Washington fans do the exact same thing here. It's the same way that you hear initial thoughts on the Dan Quinn hire were extremely negative. And now if you look, they've turned the tide has changed quite a bit. Okay. So like what I want to say to anybody is like, do not get too high or too low, especially when it comes to fan reaction on anything. It's just stay true to what you thought was the process that they should have had and stay true to that. That's it. You don't need to be too high or too low. Don't gloat.
No, it's a good point because the rose-tinted glasses are always available in the offseason, right? There are no games to prove you right or wrong. There's nothing but really fun quotes, really fun press conferences, and until you actually see something, it's hard to know whether it's actually good or not. But I will say this is the first time we've had these many, I will say, professionals in the building in quite some time, and that is very exciting. We go over to Ricky Davenport. Shout out, Ricky Davenport. It's damn time to get fired up. I love this shit. Appreciate the comment there, Ricky Davenport. And if you do love this shit, specifically this pod, please share this shit. as KDot mentions every single episode. We go over to Blood Clot. Shout out Blood Clot, another OG of the pod. Joe Witt interview was the best coach interview I've ever heard. The only thing that was missing was some King of Hero music in the background. I love how he said he doesn't have any hobbies. His family is his hobby, family and football. He's one of those guys you strive to be in your life. The story of Dan Quinn recording tape and sending handwritten messages to his son. Love that. He looked like he was emotional when telling that story. He kind of gives me Forrest Whitaker vibes from Ghost Dog. That's a reference you will get. KDot, I will not. I hate the Chiefs. Stupid Tomahawk. End of comment there from Blood Clot. KDot, you have a little smile on your face. You have a little thought that just popped up. What you got?
The man just dropped Ghost Dog, which you never heard of Ghost Dog.
Of course not.
Man, that's just. I think I gotta watch Ghost Dog today. God damn, man, that's a good fucking drop right there, man. Ghost Dog. Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
Blood Clot.
Oh man, that's awesome.
You got
Clot,
KDot thinking.
something, man.
Okay. Yeah, shout out Blood Clot one more time.
Shit. Wow.
We're going to move on to Vindo. Another OG. Shout out Vindo. Y'all are popping off the last couple of weeks. Great job, guys. Heart emoji. Hey, Vindo, without people like you, Blood Clot, Earl, Bruce, Tony, all you guys, Hermit, Robbie, like all you guys that are becoming a part of this family, it's not possible without you guys. So we really appreciate all of you for the comments, because it also helps, like, behind the curtain for a moment, helps with the algorithm, helps us talk about all sorts of different things. We love all the comments. I do. KDot apparently has problems with some of them, but it's my job to keep it positive over here. We really appreciate the comment there, Vindo.
Look, man, each of these comments helps. Like, I want to make this a living. Amit is living his lush life in his goddamn high-rise condo. I'm in a basement in Baltimore City. I need money, and this could be something that leads me to that. So, guys, help me get to that level. I'm not a fancy guy. I don't need much. Just maybe I'd like to see sunlight.
It would probably help. You know, I heard this on the trip to Mexico City when I was talking about how important the sun is. KDot, everyone needs the D.
See,
it's very important. Vitamin D. Get your head out of the gutter. Can I move on to the next comment, or are you just going to?
See, I don't want to be forced to take the D in order to afford somewhere that I get to see sunlight.
That's
so, like,
a good point.
While he's in his condos taking flights to Mexico City, and where are you going later today? A cabin? Oh, I'm gonna take a Friday to go to a cabin. Fucking prick! I need this.
That's fair. KDot does actually need this. So you guys can help. Okay, there it comes. I've been trying to hold that in for a while. So you guys can help KDot mute yourself. We go over to King of PKF. Shout out King of PKF. KC just ran a 2-minute drill and got their only touchdown in regulation. Kyle giving them a break and receiving is the right choice. Oh, okay. So we're back on Kyle Shanahan choosing to take the ball first. Okay. So Kyle giving them, the defense, a break and receiving is the right choice. So arrested defense against KC's offense, which got forced to a 4th down, by the way, this is true, is better than a hot, fiery Kansas City defense against a second-year QB in a Super Bowl needing to score a touchdown in overtime to win. Patrick was not amazing in this game by any means. It was a defensive battle the entire game, with the 49ers losing players on that now tired D all game. PS 5 years. So yeah, 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, as we eventually made that correction way too late in the episode. You're 100% right. King of PKF. 1-1, and Tampa Bay 1-1, and so did the Rams in that 5-year stretch. So shout out for the comment there. Appreciate it. I understand the perspective that you're bringing when it comes to Kyle choosing to receive, but I do think Kansas City in the 4th quarter, and I felt maybe a momentum shift, KDot, where like Mahomes just started taking over. That 4th quarter, there was a very strong feeling of he is now able to do whatever he wants. And so I wanted to give Mahomes one less down to work with. So yeah, you did force him to a 4th down, but I think there's enough time, in my opinion, between a 4th quarter and overtime to justify kicking the ball to them. And then you have all the information and you trust your offense, you're Kyle Shanahan. So we'll agree to disagree, but I definitely understand the perspective there.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
you remember I was one that I didn't go anywhere as hard in paint as you. I understood.
I did. Yeah, I went very hard.
So I would say that like the only thing I would push back on as far as what you just explained was me and you went into that game with the understanding that Patrick Mahomes was a god.
It's that dude. Yeah.
Right. So like the idea that that's a foregone conclusion for us. That does not necessarily mean that it's going to be something that's in Kyle Shanahan or anybody else's head.
It's a good point. Excellent point there, KDot. And then we go over to, and shout out King of PKF one more time for that comment. Go over to Jess Anto, which shout out Jess Anto, first of all. Always love the comments from you. This may be a bit of a script. I don't know if I can do a dramatic read because this involves a phone ringing. And okay, here we go.
You got a screenplay.
So it begins. Commander Peters looks glaring towards Quinn and asks, "Got your boy Witt?" Quinn smirks, replies, "What? You thought he wasn't coming along for the ride?" Then Commander Peters' phone rings. It's this one. It's not this one, but a phone. He answers. "You are Magic, aren't you?" Peters looks towards Quinn and says, "The package has been intercepted from the black hole." Commander Peters, Quinn, Witt, and Kingsbury embark on their franchise-changing mission. Scouring the NFL for the most grizzled vets, the most brilliant minds, and men with tremendous potential, this ragtag group of men will form a cohesive and disciplined unit whose sole purpose is violence and excellence. This front office and coaching staff will be known from this date on as the FedEx Expendables. I'm going to trademark that shit.
That's awesome.
Tell you what, FedEx Expendables is great.
I'm saying Avengers, fuck that. FedEx Expendables that works.
Is fire. So appreciate the comment there. Hope I did it a degree of justice. Let's try to figure it out as we went.
So just saying off the fucking top rope every week.
Dude, by the way, great little screenplay. The package has been intercepted from the black hole. Wait a minute.
Check it out.
Let's Cliff. FedEx Expendables. And then we got another from Jess Santos. Shout out.
All right.
With all the current QB speculation, here are my bold predictions on QB landing spots for the 2024 season. Starts with the most bold of them all, Caleb Williams, Chicago Bears. Then we go over to Drake Maye, New England Patriots. Jayden Daniels, Washington Commanders. JJ McCarthy, New York Giants. That'd be interesting. Michael Penix Jr., Minnesota Vikings. Bo Nix, Denver Broncos. Kirk Cousins, Pittsburgh Steelers. Justin Fields, Atlanta Falcons. Russell Wilson, Las Vegas Raiders. Sam Howell, Washington Commanders not being traded. I do want your opinion, Jess, on whether you would start Sam or you would just have him be the backup then. 12, we got Jacoby Brissett, either the Browns, where he's played before, or the Jets, presumably backing up Rodgers. 13, Josh Dobbs, Tennessee Titans. 14, Ryan Tannehill, Minnesota Vikings, and every other quarterback remains with their current teams. Probably the boldest of the lot. Those are the 14 moves that occur, and everybody else, stay where you are. Good to go. That is the comment from Jess Santo. What'd you make of that, Liscata?
A lot to process. I think Russell Wilson as a Raider is horrific.
Okay.
I think, look, Kirk Cousins being a Pittsburgh Steeler.
I was going to ask you about that.
You thought about that. I just don't think he's a Steeler. I would be very intrigued by it. I think the Kirk Cousins Mike Tomlin connection is very interesting.
Still on the FedEx Expendables.
I still don't.
That's great. That's great. That's going to wrap up the comment mailbag. I am proud of you, KDot, for not mentioning Kirk Cousins in your top 3. I almost teed it off for you to be able to do that, and I'm just very glad you didn't. So I'm proud of you, and yeah, I love you, bud. Thanks for not doing that today. This was District Divided, a DC sports podcast, more specifically, a Washington Commanders podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's super important, definitely not a filler episode. And if you enjoyed it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment as you always do, and KDot,
share this shit and get your flu vaccine.
We appreciate all of you. We will see you next week for the Combine episode where we talk about who we're most excited to see. But even besides the top 3 quarterbacks, don't worry about that. We'll get you covered on some other guys.
Your most uncomfortable episode of the year.
Yep. After the pod begins right now. That's actually true because I know your feelings on the Combine.
Yep.
Yeah. And I presume they wouldn't have suddenly changed
Nope.
No.
Unless there's a sudden influx of majority white players.
Well, isn't there that one white corner from Iowa?
Okay. So we have a
Not enough.
Treyarch. Got it.
It's not enough. Just one white corner isn't enough to balance the scales for you.
Never has been.
That's fair. Talk to me about your week, bud.
My week has sucked ass. So my birthday, I don't like my birthday. Never like my birthday.
He loves his birthday. He doesn't like it. He loves it. Go ahead.
I've never quite liked my birthday. I'm a Pisces, which I know some people don't give a fuck about astrology or whatever. I don't typically, but I do think I'm. Anytime you read about a Pisces, I feel as though I'm extremely emotional.
What is a Pisces? Thank you.
I'm an extremely emotional being. I can be extroverted, but I'm more introverted than extroverted. Like I could be around people. I'm completely comfortable being around people, but I need to recharge. I'm an empath to a core. Like I feel what other people are feeling way too entirely
That's probably
much.
why you love movies, I would guess.
Yeah,
lets you get there.
Part of it.
Yeah.
It's all the other reason why I like the arts and stuff. But I'm also, as much as I like to create my own stuff, it's very hard for me to let anybody see what I create on my own because I'm feel entirely too vulnerable and not confident in what I create. That's why, look, there's still an episode of the podcast, and I promised you that I was going to give you about me going to the movies like a year ago.
Yep.
You still haven't heard it because
I still hold a grudge.
As you should. The amount of screenplays and stuff that I've written that nobody's seen because I'm too scared to do anything with.
Well, you got Jess dropping them over here in the comment mailbag. Why don't you drop one, bud? Are you Jess? Is that
there might be a case that I need to get pushed out of my comfort zone to do things. But so I don't like being the center of attention all that much. Which is crazy because I love, even as a kid, I liked acting, I like podcasting, I like being the loud person in certain aspects, but I also don't necessarily, I like being part of a partnership or being with other people when I'm doing it. So I'm not like the only bastion or the lightning rod for shit.
Yeah.
So I've never been a huge guy on my birthday. I don't like birthday parties. I never really was one to like do anything with that. Then a few years back, like about a decade ago, something.
To be clear, I did ask you about your week. This is the context behind everything.
This is the context. Almost a decade ago on my birthday, something extremely terrible happened to a very, very close friend of mine. And it happened at sort of a celebration for something that was happening for me. And I've never forgiven myself for what happened. I can't remove my brain from what happened that night to my friend. And every time that my birthday comes up, it brings back a lot of feelings about what's happening with that. Even though she's awesome as far as the way that she even tries to soldier on through, even though I know she's not, she's far from being over what happened. So all those things kind of go through. I'm also, anytime around my birthday, I have a terrible fear of dying and getting older. It's why when I see a gray hair on my mustache,
you did show me that earlier.
I get all fucking.
It is so big, guys.
Fuck prick. I get, and I think part of it's because there's a lot of stuff that I'd like to accomplish that I feel as though I haven't accomplished. Maybe because I had a fear that I'm of all the other things I've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So like I always feel like the clock is ticking and I'm losing time to get any of that shit done. So like as I get older, I feel as though I put the onus more on me. You stupid fucker, why haven't you gotten the stuff done and you want to get done?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that shit. I also turned 35.
Happy 35th, bud.
Don't like it.
Okay, never mind.
Don't like it at all. And then add on top of all that shit, which I already just don't like about my birthday, I then get the flu of all fucking flus, and I'm completely fucking out of it. And I love my girlfriend to death, but my girlfriend, girlfriend has her own shit that she goes through, and she was feeling kind of manic on my birthday. So when I'm trying to lie down and feel quiet around me, she can't stop fucking doing things. So while I wanted to scream at her, I also realized she was trying to be a nice girlfriend on my birthday and she knew I was sick and she couldn't control herself.
Being the empath that you are.
So it was rough. But then I get back home. I drove home on my birthday because I was down in DC. I drove home and I've been by myself this last week. You're the first person outside of my girlfriend that I've actually talked to, and it's since Monday. I haven't talked to anybody on the phone. I
I'm
haven't
honored.
wanted to. No, great. Hopefully it worked. It's good for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Great episode today, bud.
I don't know. I've been in a really, really deep funk. And then outside, it's just also the hardest part about this version of the flu for me has been the brain fog. I haven't been able to sleep.
Eesh. Okay.
So like I almost get teary-eyed because I was crying yesterday. I was just fucking bawling. I just couldn't get my thoughts out. Or I can't think clearly.
So
like
scary place to be.
Yeah, man. I just couldn't. I couldn't think straight. And then I was talking to my girlfriend, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm saying, and I started getting emotional, and I'm like, fuck, I don't know what's happening. And I'm trying to collect my thoughts, and she's like, babe, what's wrong? And I'm like, I don't know, and I just couldn't get my fucking thoughts out. It was rough, fucking week. And then because of my whole aging and all the other kind of shit that I feel bad about, I've been in this deep state of nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
And then the nostalgia state is always fucking horrible. So I've been listening to like really shitty 90s music and being really missing that era of time.
Yeah.
And then trying to separate, is that because I miss being a kid and like not having the responsibilities and things but I don't think that's it. I literally just think it was a better time.
So I think one of the reasons that I think you and I get along, aside from talking sports and aside from talking Commanders and stuff like that, is I think we both enjoy deeper levels of thinking, not just surface level stuff. I mean, heck, we even had that comment the other day where our approach to this podcast seems to be a bit different from how others do their stuff. And so I totally get where you're coming from. And also the flu, it's a super interesting thing. And so, by the way, let that entire thing be a reminder to get a flu vaccine, or like if you are listen, do what you need to do. Just minimize your chances of getting it however you choose to.
Yes.
But the flu is always very interesting because you're so KO'd, your thoughts get weird, at least mine do. And it does give you that moment where you're so shut down, it almost causes you to reflect, to be stuck in your head. Because there's nothing else to do. Like you're drinking water, you're trying to sleep, you're drinking Gatorade, you're trying to sleep, having soup, trying to sleep, whatever. And all of a sudden, your mind can go to the craziest places, and it makes you reflect on the craziest things. So I do not envy you one bit.
I've lost 21 pounds since Monday.
Get the fuck out of here! You lost 21. That's not normal.
No. Dude, I haven't eaten. Like I eat Ritz crackers and been drinking Gatorade.
How are you feeling today? Well, it explains the JJ McCarthy thing now.
I feel better today than I have all week. I started feeling better last night.
Yeah.
But then even last night, I got to a point where it was like I started feeling better. I laid down, and I couldn't get to sleep, and then I passed out. I gave up. I hadn't smoked weed I hadn't done any fucking drugs this whole week. And I tried to smoke weed last night, which is not a great idea because coughing.
Yeah.
But it did help knock me out. So I fell asleep at like, it had to be like 4:30 this morning.
Okay.
Woke up at like 8:15.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Your just schedule's totally off too, because you're in and out of sleep, in and out of sleep.
But my schedule's off anyway, right?
Sure,
so
but this time it doesn't feel as in your control, right?
It's not.
At least that's a huge difference between I'm always off schedule, but it is subconsciously to a degree up to you. Whereas this is just you gotta wait it out and just do everything you can until you feel better. Did you have the capacity or bandwidth to be able to like see any movies or do anything like that, or you've just been KO'd, man?
So that was the other thing, is like I watch every episode of True Detective. I watch Curb Your Enthusiasm every week. The Grand Tour, one of my favorite shows on Prime, the guy from Top Gear. I didn't watch any of those until yesterday.
Okay.
Like I just couldn't even watch fucking television. Like I could not concentrate. And I also think what did not help at all is I would just kind of fucking scrolling on my phone and like scrolling through Twitter.
Oh, dude, that is the worst. We should do a separate after
horrific.
The pod on just doom scrolling specifically.
It wasn't even doom scroll. It was just the annoyance that I had. You know what really annoyed me more than anything that I saw? Is my algorithm gives me a lot of really shitty fake videos that couples do for to promote their OnlyFans pages. It's very specific.
Yeah.
They do this stupid fucking like back and forth for the girl to do something dumb and like shake her ass, do something, and it's like I can't even describe it properly, but it was like I was getting fed that a ton. And maybe it's because I kept watching them, even though I'm not showing anything. I'm not fucking subscribing to the OnlyFans page. I'm not following them. It was just like I got a lot of it, and it was making me angry. It was making me fucking angry.
Oh,
I just all the fake fucking videos I was watching was just making me angry. I mean, I work in social media. It's my job. Like I don't usually have it. I can understand. I separate it. Whatever. I was fucking annoyed to no end, and it was just also knew that there were a lot of people around me that were also going through shit. Like, I know my girlfriend was having a rough week, and I couldn't be there for her the way I wanted to be there for her.
Right.
And she couldn't be there for me the way that she wanted to be there for me because I just couldn't have anybody.
Well, unfortunately, it's a bit of an awkward stop here, but we are coming up against a hard stop, and
we're past the fucking hard stop, bro.
Yeah, no, I know, but I wanted to hear that, and I thought it was very important. So, glad you're at least on the up and up now, bud. And it sounds like that OnlyFans page isn't growing as much as you wanted it to with you and your girl. So if you could just drop that, we'll throw it in the description for you guys. So until then, take it easy, enjoy yourselves.
In DC, we're just hoping that you listen.